In the last video, I reviewed the 2025 MSI Stealth A16, and I was quite impressed by it. It did almost everything right, and could easily be the best gaming laptop of 2025. But the Zephyrus G16 currently holds that crown. So how do these two compare? Well, let's find out. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. From the outside, these two laptops are going for very different vibes. The Stealth is a bit more, well, stealthy from the outside, sporting a fully black body with minimal branding. And while the Zephyrus does have a very professional MacBook-like look as well, it has this LED strip on the back. This can be turned off though, so you decide which one looks better in an office setting. Both of these laptops are absolute tanks. The Zephyrus has a full aluminum body, while the Stealth has a magnesium aluminum alloy, but they're essentially the same. They're both built incredibly well and can probably take a punch or two. Do not punch your laptop. I'm legally obligated to say that. The Stealth is noticeably heavier though. It's not as heavy as the average gaming laptop, but you do feel the difference between these two. And it's also considerably thicker than the Zephyrus, which might look worse, but that does mean it has more space for cooling. Now, I tried to spec these two as close as possible, but the Stealth has an AMD chip, while the Zephyrus has an Intel one. And I'm really curious to see how these will compare, because they're both very good chips, just from different brands. The Zephyrus also has a little higher power limits for that 5070 Ti, so you might think it's gonna be faster, but only if it can actually achieve those wattages. The Zephyrus's Intel chip is a bit more power hungry, so it might steal a bit of power from the GPU. Both of these also have higher and lower GPU options as well, so if you need more VRAM or want to save some money, you definitely have options, as long as your wallet can take it. They both have quite a lot of ports, but the Zephyrus has one extra USB-C port on the left side, while the Stealth only has one. The Stealth also has an Ethernet jack, while the Zephyrus has an SD card reader, so think about which one better fits your needs. But in my opinion, the Zephyrus easily wins in terms of ports for one simple reason. It has its charging port on a normal spot, while the Stealth has it on the right side of the laptop, which is where your mouse goes, you know? This is gonna be a deal breaker for quite a bit of people. Their charging bricks are about the same size and weight, and they're also both 240 watts, which is nice. But if you want a smaller charger for a more compact package, they can also charge through USB-C. But of course, the Zephyrus can be charged from both sides, while the Stealth can, again, only be charged through the right side. Okay, now for their keyboards. The Zephyrus has a single zone RGB backlight, while the Stealth has a per key RGB backlight, so it definitely wins in terms of looks. But they both have very satisfying keyboards for typing. The Zephyrus's keys have a bit longer key travel and sound and feel more uniform, while the Stealth has slightly shorter key travel, but is a lot more clicky. This kind of stuff is very subjective, but I do slightly prefer the Zephyrus because of that longer key travel. The Zephyrus has half-size arrow keys, but also 4 very handy reprogrammable macro keys at the top here, while the Stealth has full-size arrow keys and a numpad, which a lot of people will want to have. But then the Zephyrus has an extra FN key on the left side of the keyboard and dedicated backlight brightness buttons, while the Stealth only has an FN key on the right side and no backlight brightness keys, which is a little annoying. But what about their trackpads? The one on the Zephyrus is definitely a lot bigger, which is a pretty big advantage to have. They're both made of glass though, so they feel very nice and premium. But I really prefer the click of the Stealth over the Zephyrus. Its build quality is just a little better and it feels more balanced. Also, it feels noticeably more responsive on the Stealth. The Zephyrus almost feels laggy in comparison. Most people use a mouse on their laptop anyways, so it doesn't matter that much. What definitely matters though are their displays. And on paper at least, they're basically identical, which means amazing screens for both of them. They're both OLED, which means beautiful, accurate colors, infinite contrast, and blacks are actually black. An OLED panel paired with 240Hz means basically the smoothest, most responsive displays you'll probably ever use in your life. Pair that with a 2.5K resolution and you'd almost think you're looking at a painting. But there is a huge, noticeable difference between them that doesn't show up on their spec pages. Their display coatings. The Zephyrus basically has the best anti-reflective layer on any laptop right now, while the Stealth A16 is essentially just a mirror in comparison. If you use your laptop outside, near a window, or in front of any light source, you're gonna be annoyed by this. And for me, this is unfortunately a pretty big deal breaker. The hinge on the Stealth is definitely better though. It opens up way further and it's a little more stiff, so it wobbles a lot less. However, they're both nice and easy to open up with one hand, so no issues there. Now, from the outside, they're both flexing their speakers quite a bit. But which one sounds better? Yeah, it's not even close. The Zephyrus destroys the Stealth here. Even though the Stealth has top-firing speakers, a couple on the side, and even some extras on the bottom, it's just a bit lacking in bass. Meanwhile, the Zephyrus has two huge top-firing speakers, as well as some dedicated subwoofers on the bottom. It gets a lot louder, it sounds more clear, it has actual working surround sound, and the bass it produces is better than most headphones I've tried. They both don't have amazing webcams, but the Zephyrus just uses a bit more post-processing to make it look a little sharper. The microphone on the Zephyrus is studio level quality compared to the tinny sounding one on the Stealth though. But the most important part about these laptops is their performance. The Zephyrus has a higher power limit for its GPU, but the Stealth has a less power-hungry CPU. So which one performs better? Well, in Cinebench R23, the Zephyrus's Intel chip does pull ahead in terms of single-core performance, which is important for gaming. But the Stealth's AMD chip is faster multi-core-wise, probably because it has more performance cores than the Zephyrus. But in 3D Mark TimeSpy, the Zephyrus is definitely a little faster. So at least in benchmarks, that extra wattage is doing something. But these are not mixed CPU and GPU workloads. We need to see how they perform under heavy load. And these are gaming laptops after all, so let's play some actual games.
Paco, you are teaching de la squadie.
I'll hack you to pieces. Ha! You'll never take me down.
What did you do, man? No!
Okay, those numbers were a very mixed bag. The Zephyrus did outperform the Stealth a little bit in Counter-Strike 2 and Battlefield 6, which was the expected result, But in every other game, both CPU and GPU intensive, the Stealth was just straight up faster. And in some games, the difference really is huge. This might look confusing at first, but I can assure you there's a very simple explanation. In Cyberpunk 2077, we see that the Stealth's HX370 uses 20 to 25 watts, while the Zephyrus's 285H uses around 35 watts. And because that AMD chip uses less power, its GPU can use more power. Laptops only have a set amount of watts that they can give to their CPU and GPU. So when a laptop's CPU uses more power, its GPU has access to less power. And even though a 10 to 15 watt difference might not sound like a lot, for laptop GPUs, that obviously does make a pretty sizable difference. So how does their cooling compare? The Zephyrus is quite a bit thinner, so does it run hotter? Well, in a heavy workload, their CPUs run at about the same temperatures. The Zephyrus's chip does peak a little higher, but nowhere near its thermal limits. But the Stealth's GPU does stay considerably cooler, so it has a lot more thermal headroom to play with for both the CPU and GPU. But what about their fan noise? Well, the Stealth definitely sounds louder, but the Zephyrus is higher pitched. It's pretty obvious that the Stealth simply has the better cooling. I mean, it has more space to work with. But what about their battery life? The Stealth has a massive battery inside of it, but it also has an AMD chip, while the Zephyrus has Intel. Well, I tested their battery life in two scenarios, under light use and during gaming. But the Stealth has a very unfortunate problem that we need to work with. Normally, I run displays at 60 Hz during battery tests, since laptops simply use less power at a lower refresh rate. This wasn't an issue on the Zephyrus, but on the Stealth, this display is stuck at 240 Hz. There is no way to put it down. So while I would have loved to make this comparison more fair, I simply can't. In the light use test, I played a YouTube video until their batteries died, with their displays at 80% brightness, at 240 Hz on the Stealth, and 60 Hz on the Zephyrus, and with their dedicated GPUs turned off. And they both did last very long, but the Zephyrus lasted a little longer. I am certain that if we could put the Stealth at 60 Hz, it would have beat the Zephyrus G16, and maybe by quite a lot. But since we cannot do that, it is a pretty big advantage on the Zephyrus' side. Now in the gaming test, I played Battlefield 1 until their batteries died with the same settings as before. And I am going to keep saying this: do not buy a gaming laptop if you want to play games on the go on battery. Buy a gaming handheld. Okay, now normally gaming laptops are pretty upgradable, since they're pretty big and have the space for modular components. But on these two, that's unfortunately not the case. They both have soldered RAM, so memory upgrades are very sadly impossible. They do both have two M.2 SSD slots though, so you can easily do storage upgrades. But on some variants of the Stealth A16, you only get one slot, so please check that before buying. And they both also have replaceable Wi-Fi cards, so faster Wi-Fi in the future is a possibility. I think it's especially stupid that the Stealth A16 doesn't have upgradable RAM, because last year's model did have that option, and they're the exact same thickness. And now for the big deal breaker. Which one of these is cheaper? Well, with the current Black Friday craze, prices are kind of all over the place. So currently, these two are actually at the same price. $2,500 is still a lot of money, but you're paying a premium for their overall features, not just their performance. However, the Stealth has a way cheaper variant that I think has better value. This Stealth A16 with a slightly slower CPU but the same GPU is $400 cheaper. And for such a good laptop, I think that one's actually a lot more worth it. The Zephyrus has cheaper models as well, but those come with weaker GPUs. I'll put some links for both of these in the description for if you're interested. Which brings us to our conclusion. Which one of these is better and more worth it? The Zephyrus G16 or the Stealth A16? Well, this is a really tough one, because both of these are great laptops. The Stealth A16 has very good value. It performs better than the Zephyrus in games, and it simply has a less cramped cooling solution, so it performs more stable. Oh, and it also has a numpad. But the Zephyrus G16 does everything really well. It has the same gorgeous display, but with a way better coding. It has basically the best speakers on any laptop right now. It's a lot more lightweight and compact. And not to mention, it has the charging port on a normal location. So it really depends on what you need your laptop for. If you mainly play games and need a numpad, then get the Stealth A16 because it's simply faster and it has a numpad. But if you do basically anything else on your laptop, as well as play games, I would just get the Zephyrus because it does everything just right. This thing has been perfected over multiple years, and it really has very little downsides now. So in my opinion, the Zephyrus is still the best all-round laptop of 2025. However, both of these are great laptops, and you're not going to be disappointed by either one of them. Except maybe that charging port location. I mean, MSI, what the hell were you thinking? Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Soundwife, Thomas, Inky, Mr. Frosty Dude, Dropzone1, Martijn Snijkers, Flimsy, Aki, Disco Volante, Mr. Nuke, Sebastian, Christian Sands, Real Elf, Eric the Red, Wesley Rhodes, Michael, Ghost Data, Anu Gadar, Abdullah, and Mate Peace. I'm just gonna say it like that. If you become a YouTube member, you get early access to content of mine, a shout out at the end of every video, and you'll also be supporting me as a creator to make these videos. And of course, you'll also be part of the Cool Guys Club, so you can use cool emojis like these in the comment section. So join the club if you're interested. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.